Beautiful morning it is. This is Steve Kemp with the People Not Titles podcast. We're out in front of the Land Trust offices in Oak Brook once again, and today we're going to interview fantastic real estate attorney Jill Daniels. She's going to talk about how she got her law license, how she got into real estate, and now how she manages her business with a bunch of people in it and grows every single year her client base and her agent relationships. So we're so excited. People Not Titles, let's go. Hello, this is Steve Kemp with the People Not Titles podcast, and I am so pleased today to have with us Jill Daniels, attorney Jill Daniels. And what's the name of the law firm, Jill?
Jill Daniels, LLC.
Okay.
Just keeping it simple.
Keeping it simple. Fantastic. So we are so excited. Jill has been in the business for quite some time. She has just, she's very well known in the real estate community. And we're going to talk a little bit about her journey from getting started in law to becoming an entrepreneur. And there's so many ways that we can go with it from there. So Jill, glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's quite an honor.
Excellent. So Jill, what motivated you to get your law degree?
It was during college when you're a political science major. I was
Okay.
a political science and Spanish major.
Mm-hmm.
I think the options were, you go to law school.
Okay.
I didn't want to teach
Okay.
and Spanish in high school and didn't really know how to use that and being a political science major. It was really, the option was to go to law school. So I had taken a year off because I graduated college early.
Where'd you go to college?
I graduated from Illinois Benedictine.
Okay, fantastic.
And took a year off and worked in a law firm, and then applied to go to law school, and I went at night to Loyola.
All right.
So I had always worked in law firms during law school, and went to law school at night.
So when you went to law school, did you have in mind what kind of law you wanted to practice?
I actually wanted to do tax,
Okay.
and did not do tax at all.
Okay, and why did you want to do tax at the time?
Because I really like things that are concrete.
Okay, you like the structure and the laws.
I like the structure and the having to be concrete, and the last thing I wanted to do was litigation.
Okay.
And when
But
when I graduated,
Yeah.
I got a job in litigation.
Okay.
Not only just litigation, but doing high volume litigation.
Okay, and how long did you do that for?
I did that for about 7 or 8 years and had a lot of jury trials, so many bench trials, and hundreds and hundreds of arbitrations.
Mm-hmm. Are you a good arguer? Is that why you did well in litigation, or?
I don't know if I'm a good arguer. I would say a good planner. I could plan it out
Okay.
so that I was prepared.
All right.
So I would say, let's go with, I was always prepared, and there were not surprises.
All right.
And when you do high volume litigation, it was subrogation primarily. It was, you know what's to be expected.
All right.
And I like that aspect of it.
And at one point though, even though you do plan, you have to be able to communicate, right?
And be quick on your feet.
And be quick on your feet and defend yourself and know your stuff. So that's pretty impressive. I'm sure that served you in a number of different things.
Yeah, and I really like that you really knew a lot about one topic.
Mm-hmm.
With car accidents and the subrogation and the recovery aspect of it, to really get in depth with one topic rather than knowing a lot and really discovering something new every time you had a new case come in. So I think that's what I really enjoyed most about it, was just really understanding one topic really well.
And did you know when you got into litigation that you would not be in it for long, or was there something that just triggered you to say, okay, I'm done here now?
Well, I have a child that's autistic.
Okay.
So, and during that time, Evie was having a lot of trouble, and at the time my husband was traveling a lot because he worked at one of the big law firms downtown. So when, we were having all the struggles, and it just really wasn't compatible working, both of us working. He was traveling every week. He was actually working on the 9/11 litigation.
Oh.
So it really, one of us had to make a snap decision of who was going to give up their career and stay home. And at the time, he made significantly more money than I did. And he was on a better path, trajectory, if you will, and really liked what he was doing. Being at a big law firm and where he was headed. And he, said, I want to stay working. And I said, I want to stay home and be a mom.
So that was a courageous decision, right? Because you had all this time invested into a career, into your education and all that, but yet you said, it probably was the easy one for you in the sense
I don't know if
that,
it was a decision, it was just
Okay.
what you needed to do for your child.
okay.
I mean, it was really,
It sounds courageous to me when,
well,
you know.
I think it was really no decision, because it was so difficult to work to have a child that really needed you.
Mhm.
And, you know, daycare was really difficult, we had lost our nanny,
Mm.
and we went back to daycare, and it just really wasn't a fit.
Mm.
So really, going to work it was just always a battle of where do I need to be? And it was just really a hard thing to say, you really can't have it all.
Mm.
So it just kind of lent itself to that.
Okay.
And I had really wanted to be home, because realizing you couldn't, my other two children, even though I have 4 children now, at the time we had 3, went with it. Daycare was great for them, they loved it. And I remember my oldest at the time when I quit was like, I still want to go back to daycare. Well, you can't go back because we're home now. This is the new normal.
Okay.
We're all home.
and how was that transition for you?
It was really rough for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, financially, it was a rough transition because we started a lot of therapies, and so we gave up a salary,
And we had a lot of investment.
and we had a lot of, you know, expenses that came with that. And emotionally, it was hard because we were dealing with a diagnosis
Mhm.
of a child that was having a lot of struggles, and I really felt isolated.
Mm.
But
How'd you find strength during that period of time, Joe?
I had a lot of, I would say my parents were so supportive. And I didn't really have a lot of friends in the community because we were in the daycare community.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it evolved with the kids started to go to preschool, and then you started to find friends within the special needs community with the preschools that we enrolled EB into, and it just started a different type of life. So it was interesting, the friends that I made during that time didn't even know my life as a lawyer.
Wow.
And working, and it was just really kind of starting over.
Okay. And how long were you home, taking care of that situation?
And this is where the timelines will get
Yeah.
blurred, but I was home with EB probably not working as a lawyer, probably for maybe 7 years,
Okay.
maybe 6 years. But then during that time, as a fluke, I, my husband's aunt had died. Now this will be a surprise to you, Steve. My husband's aunt had died and left an embroidery machine. So long story short, no one claimed it, and I said, I'll take it and figure it out. So I started an embroidery business and figured out how to do
That's great.
stuff.
Love
And
it.
I with supported some friends. They were like, you should make some burp cloths. And before you knew it, I had started an embroidery business, Stitch is So Sweet, which has been sold, I guess, another time over. It's still around.
Wow.
And so that was nice to have that, and that allowed me to be at home, to bring in some money, and to have something for myself.
Yeah.
Which is something I would never have thought. It was just kind of a happenstance. And then in the sensory world and those kind of things, I had made some weighted vest and kind of figured that out, and kind of just to do something, because I always like to learn and discover new things.
Yes.
So I wasn't working as a lawyer, but kind of doing other things, I would say, for myself.
Yeah, and before we get into how you got into real estate law, so you overall, I would say, just from my assessment of meeting you several times and talking, you're an entrepreneur. It's just innate. You're very energetic and creative. And where'd that come from? Is it just inside of you? Is it something your parents passed down?
I would say it was my parents passed down. My dad
Okay.
had, growing up, my dad had started a company, had sold a company, had started another one. And both my brother has done that a couple times. He worked
Mhm.
for Google's and retired from there, started another company, had sold that. So it's something that we just grew up, that was what you did, and with a hard work ethic.
Wow. That's
And
great.
I really like to learn.
Yeah,
So I think that's,
you're curious.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
That's great.
discovering and those kind of things. And my husband, that's how he grew up too, with his dad owning a company. So it was really natural.
Excellent. And I just love the synergy you both have in supporting each other in raising a family, and part of that is economic, part of that is the emotional piece of it, and
And the necessity of what we have to do, what needs to be done.
yeah. And so how is EB now?
EB's in college,
Okay.
which I couldn't be
And
more proud of.
how old is she?
EB is a freshman in college,
Okay.
and so EB now identifies as he. The
Okay.
preferred pronouns are he and him,
Okay.
and is a freshman at Eastern, and is in the autism step program. So and went back for a second semester and wants to be an elementary education art teacher.
Fantastic.
And really, I have Harper's my oldest, is in college in California, or e-learning in California, in a nice apartment with friends. But Evie's in classes, and I just, I'm gonna try not to well up, with tears, but could not be more proud. And I would say that all the sacrifices and everything we made to get here, to see Evie off to college, was all worth it.
That's amazing. Yeah, parenting is kind of a thankless job while you're doing it, right? There's so many moments during the day of sacrifice that no one comes in and gives you a trophy or says, great job, but then you have these moments where you see that the investment you made is paying off, and
Right, the days were so long.
Yeah.
I think back, there were hours that were long and the days that were long, and Evie didn't always go to the same school as the other kids. But to be able to see Evie graduate from LT in LaGrange without a para, when you have to think that I quit my job when Evie was 3 because Evie needed so much support, and to be able to be at college is just, that makes life.
That's amazing.
That makes it all the life choices a win.
Yeah, I've never, I've never heard anyone say, wow, I've sacrificed for my kids and I regret it. But
Never.
But there are people that sacrifice their kids for career, and then they're like, oh, I wish I would have, or I missed this part. You can't get that back, right? So that's great. You can put your head on the pillow at night going, I made a good choice. We made a good choice.
But I think it's always my husband. We've always been a partner.
Yes.
And I say, at that time.
Yeah, he knew his role. He had to be out there.
At that time, right, that's where he was, and that's the place that he was at, traveling and making those sacrifices.
Yep.
And, he had since segued into a job. Now he's doing claims, and he has a much more regular schedule, and my schedule's not as regular. So he's actually the one, and while I was home with Evie before I went back to law, we adopted a little boy from Ethiopia.
Yeah, so that's another thing, is that during that period of time you adopt. And so what inspired you to do that?
Well, Evie was in a self-contained classroom
Okay.
For kids with needs, and at the time Evie's teacher had adopted a little boy from Ethiopia. She had one from Guatemala and then one from Ethiopia. Excuse me, and we had talked all the time, because when your child has rough days, you always get a phone call, maybe multiple times a day. And we started looking at the waiting child list, and I had always wanted 4 kids, and really 3 was a lot given the needs that we had present in the home. And we started looking at the waiting child list, and we were like, I don't know if this is a good idea or if this is not a good idea. And I remember my husband and I would vacillate between if it is or if it isn't a good idea. And Peter was getting on a plane to fly somewhere, and the earthquake in Haiti had just happened. And this is before you could text on planes or have Wi-Fi. And I think he thought about it on the plane, and when he got off, he said, we're asking the wrong question. We're asking, why are we doing this, instead of why wouldn't we do it? And so we flipped the script, which is always, I think, a different way, a different perspective to look at things. And Fisher was on that waiting child list, and we signed up with the thought of, we're gonna adopt, because Tate at the time was 5.
Okay.
And we thought, we'll adopt a younger child on the waiting list, and then we kept seeing Fisher's picture.
And how old was Fisher at the time?
Well, on the waiting child list, he was younger than Tate.
Okay.
And we saw him, and we just thought, well, why are we waiting? So we adopted, we put our name in to adopt Fisher. And then when we got Fisher home, because oftentimes you don't have an accurate birth date. And then when we got Fisher home, when we ran tests and those kind of things, it turns out his birth date overlapped. Probably his birth date would overlap Tate's. So we put to the boys, who's older. They were probably so, and it was very clear that Fisher was older.
Wow.
And Tate was younger. So Tate's birthday is November 13th, and we
So
made Fisher's birthday October 13th. So they're a month apart.
and how old are they now?
Now they're 17, they're juniors.
Wow. And so Tate kept his position as the young one of the family.
He needed that position.
Yeah.
He still needs it.
Okay. That's
Sorry,
great.
Tate, if you're listening.
And how
if
did
you're
the
gonna listen.
two boys, right?
Yes.
How do they get along?
They get along really well.
Yeah.
They Fisher came home in the end of first grade, and they went to school all together, and then in high school they went to 2 different high schools. So they, have taken different paths, but really when it comes back to it, they share a room and they're there for each other, and we're family.
So what the question that comes to me is, Jill, you have this major emotional energy that you're putting towards your special needs daughter and your other kids. how do you find more for another one? How does that happen? I mean, where do you get that from?
I think he completed our family.
Okay,
So
so
if
you
you-
felt like there's something missing in our family. And,
There was. I mean, like,
Okay.
I'd always wanted 4 kids. If you ask
Okay.
my husband, he always wanted 2 kids. But, you know, I really think he completed our family, and his Ethiopian name is Waisa.
okay,
So, and if that is, you know, and that means, and it means makes everything better. And I really think he has made everything better.
wow.
I mean, he's funny, he's hardworking, he's, you know, sometimes when you look at nature versus nurture, there's no nurture going on in there. It's all nature because he's so different than the other kids.
Huh.
He's much more laid back. They'll all be fighting, and you know, he'll just be like, I'm gonna go to the other room.
Wow.
And if you ask all 3 of my biological kids, Tate, Fisher, and Evie, I'm sorry, look, I even got them mixed up. That's how much I don't even like look at it
Yeah,
that way.
they're ingrained. Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
If you and we don't even look at them that way. You know, sometimes I forget that we haven't had Fisher since birth. But if you ask, you know, Harper, I have to really think about who's not adopted. Harper, Evie, and Tate, who their favorite sibling is, they all say Fisher hands down.
Wow. So if there's someone out there listening going, oh, I've always had it in my mind to adopt, and would you have any advice for them?
I just say go with your heart,
Go with your heart.
right? And
Yeah, you
I
can't
don't
have
regret
everything
it at
all
all.
planned out, right? It's just like when you took the first step and the next step and the next step. Type.
Right, and not look too far ahead.
Yeah.
Just sometimes it's day by day, and I think that's how we looked at it with having a child with needs. Is we can't look, like even now we can't look at, like when Evie started college, we had some rough weeks, but we didn't look at where are we going to be in 4 years. We're just day by day.
That's great.
And that's like, you know, like even starting the semester, like we're better off at the start of this semester than we were last semester, and that's what I told Evie last night. I know you're a little overwhelmed because it's the start of the semester, but you're great.
Yeah,
And you made it through that one, and that's how I think we approach life.
that's great. It's really being present today as opposed to living too much in the future, and you get all.
Or living in the past.
Or living in the past.
Right, you have to learn from the past, but not let it dictate.
Yeah. Okay, so at what I love you went to Ethiopia.
I've been to Ethiopia twice.
Okay, and tell it what was the motivation behind that, and
Well, we went to Ethiopia first we had to go meet Fisher for our first court date.
okay,
So I went there with my husband first to go meet him and to go to our first court date. And then my husband went back to go pick Fisher up because he was flying a lot of the times. We got to fly first class, and he had different, you know, so, and he, you know, was able to go do that. And he figured, let me spend some good time with Fisher because I'm going to go back to traveling.
wow,
And then Fisher and I went back a little over 2 years ago because I really wanted him, his mom was alive and still is, but I really wanted him to see his family and to, you know, before something would happen, or, I mean, and we, at this time, we didn't know about COVID or anything that would be happening, and I thought, let's go do that, and so he and I went.
wow. And so what was that like? What were the highlights of the trip or big takeaways?
It was really wonderful. It was really great for him to see it, but it was also really hard.
What was the hard part?
Just realizing, I think, for him, how much his life is different. And I think asking the questions, why was I put up for adoption? And asking the questions, why is our life so different here?
Yeah,
And asking the questions, are we more, because we have more, is our life better? That doesn't mean that our life is necessarily better. You know, I mean, just because we have so much more, received so much more, isn't much more.
right.
I mean, I think you can ask a lot of questions about how you live your life. You know, even though it's a third world country and there's not running water and there's not this, is our life better?
And what, did you have a conclusion to that?
I don't know that I have a conclusion.
Okay.
I think you have to live your life true
Yeah,
and be a better person. And that it's the type of person you are, not like how you live your life and what you do with what you have.
that's good, that's profound, Jill. So Jill, okay, so getting through family now, so when did the bug or whatever when did you decide to open up your real estate law firm?
So I had gone back, like, you know, when I quit practicing with Evie, it was about the time, so I'm probably dating myself for everybody out there, it was about the time that they were requiring continuing legal ed for lawyers, and I just was like, you know what, I'm not gonna keep my license active. If I go back, then I'll worry about my continuing legal ed. So, you know, my parents have been so incredibly supportive, as my husband has been. So my mom, and Evie was in a much better place and doing really well. And as were all the kids. So I had to go figure out how am I going to get my like 120 hours of CLE, continuing legal ed. So I signed up for a lot of different things. So one of the things, and I really didn't want to go back to litigation, but I did go back to my old job for a year. And while I was at my job, I had done real estate, like we'd get the real estate closings in, those kind of things, and they would be like, go to the roll downhill, if you will, which would be, to me, along the way to help handle. And I was always intrigued by transactional versus the litigation. But I went back, like I said, to my old job just to do, some of the arbitrations, those kind of things. And what I liked about subrogation, it was shorter term, it was over with, it was done, and you moved on. And I had gone back to become a mediator because I thought that was a better way to resolve things, to really look at it. So I went and it was a lot of CLE. So let's look at that as key. Because that's a lot of CLE and that's a lot of sitting in front of your computer.
Yeah.
So it was in person, and I thought, I've got to figure out where is my next path and what do I want to do. So I tried to do most of my CLEs in person and to do it with experiences. So I did the Center for Conflict Resolution, the mentorship program. So I got selected as an intensive volunteer program in the courts to do mediation and mentorship. So I was past that and did a lot of mediation in the courts, landlord-tenant, and volunteering with that, family law, those kind of things. I got certified to be a court certified mediator, and I still do a fair number of family law mediation now that I work in, and I really like to do it within real estate. But and then I became a collaborative divorce fellow, which I still love and think is so valuable.
So tell it why. What?
Collaborative divorce is to resolve your divorce outside of court.
Yep. Getting together, husband
with a
and
team.
wife.
Yeah, husband and wife, with both have attorneys.
Yeah.
You have a team. You have a financial neutral. It gets together as an approach to resolve it, and really, your house is your biggest asset. I mean, we could do a whole podcast on divorce and real estate, which I am so passionate about, because I feel like when you can resolve where you're going to live and have a clear path, that brings people peace. And that was, what I really like about having to resolve that, because you have autonomy to make your own decisions with guidance.
And it doesn't have to be nuclear, right?
Right. I mean, not that it's not adversarial, but you have the skills and the approach to do that. And then I also did like DUI summary suspension hearings, which I did not thoroughly enjoy.
Okay.
Found those really stressful, but it was great to have that experience. I did guardian ad litem work, those kind of things, to get volunteering to figure out my path. And I had some friends that were realtors, and they said, hey, why don't you, I would love to use you. I started all of that, and because I had done high volume litigation, I'm really into systems. And I had started doing real estate and started with systems and really realized this is where my passion is.
Wow.
And the rest is history.
So this is great, though, that you volunteered, you got active. Very rarely do the answers come while you're sitting, for me anyway. They come while you're active and pursuing and watching and seeing the data and whatever, and just...
And I considered even like drag, because I always had wanted to do taxation.
Yeah.
And I thought, like I said, my husband was super supportive, and he wasn't really traveling as much at the time because he had, kind of looked at a different career path, and like, if you're not gonna become a big partner, you kind of go in-house, do those things, and he wanted to be home more. We needed it with the family. Traveling as the kids were getting harder as getting older was actually getting harder. And so I thought maybe I just assumed I'll go back and get my LLM in health law or like taxation. And then I looked at how much do I spend, the time that I do this, what's the job prospect, having that worked.
Yeah.
And that really didn't necessarily make sense. So your LLM is like your master's of law.
Yeah.
And so just really kind of spending a year exploring, but using that year to get my CLEs.
Yeah. Getting back.
Legit. Really, and then having the support of my parents.
Yeah.
My mom's like, we're all yours.
Wow.
Whatever you need, just tell us. And
That's so great.
And we're there to make that happen for you.
Yeah.
And it was nice because the kids were getting older, so we didn't need the same daycare.
Yeah, but it felt comfortable.
Right, we didn't
felt
need the
safe
same
to move on.
therapies. Right.
Yeah.
And my husband was like, I've got some flexibility if I need to be home for you to do something. And it was nice because some of the volunteering was at night.
Yeah.
So really childcare wise, it really worked.
Yeah, there's a lot of moms or dads, but primarily stay-at-home moms that have this gap, and then they're like, how do I get started again?
It's really hard.
Yeah, it's
And I
really
think people
hard.
underestimate that.
Yeah.
So I started my firm and really just thought initially.
What year did you start? Was it 7 years ago?
Yeah, like 6 or 7 years
Okay.
ago.
So you started in about 2013 or 14.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
really thought, before, when I was thinking about starting my firm, I was like, I'm just gonna do mediation
Mm-hmm.
and collaborative divorce, and really, and that was really what my intention was when I started. And I had done some freelance, like project management work, with the Sears Kmart merger while I was home, and did some stuff with that as a project manager, and just kind of looking, where do I go, and those kind of things, and I just thought, this is where I'm gonna go, and the real estate kind of was the second thought, but really was, when I explored everything, it was really what I loved.
Wow.
And I just love to see that I can make a positive impact. I love to see it completed. And
Did your first real estate deals come out of the divorce work, and then you're like, okay.
no,
now-
it didn't. It
Okay.
really, they just came from my friends that were realtors.
Wow, okay.
And then just really like, okay, and really kind of looking at it, using my high volume litigation experience
Yeah.
of, okay, we have
Systems,
forms and systems and
processes, yep.
processes, and started in Google Drive and didn't even know about Smokeball,
Yes.
which I use, and those kind of things. And then, 2 files turned into 4 files, and 4 files turned into 6 files, and 8 files. And then I was, and my daughter was playing water polo, and the funny story about Peg, my paralegal, who I think, she wasn't a paralegal at the time, and we just call her a paralegal because she's learned on the job. Sorry, Peg,
Yeah.
to call you out. But she was, Harper had gone, my daughter plays water polo in college, and that has always been her passion. And she had gone when she was 11, and I couldn't travel with her to Salt Lake City to play for the Junior Olympics. And we put her on a plane, and we were promised that this coach would be there with the whole time, and it turned out it really wasn't the case. And then she's like, this really nice lady is gonna take me to lunch, because otherwise we won't have
Sounds
lunch.
like the Taken movie or something.
Well, that would be Peg. And I was like, are you sure? Like, I was
Oh,
like,
that's good.
I'm like, can we have she's like, well, I'm gonna be here all alone. And then she was like, but she's got a daughter, they're from Oak Park. And she, like,
Okay,
and
so Peg had a daughter on the trip as well.
who's a year older than
Who's a year
Harper.
older. Oh, I see.
Okay, and I was like, so this was when they were in 6th and 7th grade.
Wow.
Okay, and I was like, okay, and I was so nervous. We were like, I'm like, well, like,
You're just glad
keep
you have
texting me and calling me.
Yeah.
Okay, and I was a nervous wreck. So flash forward to 2 years later, and then I was going on a trip with them to play with Fenwick, because Harper went to Fenwick to go play, and Peg, I was like, I can't be the chaperone. They needed a chaperone. I'm like, and Peg had broken her arm. She had fallen and broken her arm, so she couldn't be a chaperone. And I'm like, I have a closing. I can't go because I have a closing. And she was like, it's fine. You can go because Bill, my husband, is an attorney, and he does real estate closings, and he can cover your closing. And you can go. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll go. And then we turn out that this is the same lady that took Harper to lunch.
Wow.
And she gave me such nice organization things with really pretty binders, clips, and I really like cute things, as you know, and
Yeah.
everything's branded
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that was so wonderful. I'm like, you should start working for me like 2 or 3 hours a week, or 2 or 3 hours a day. I could use a little help, and so now Peg, the joke is Peg works all but 2 to 3 hours a day.
Wow.
So that nice lady that I was terrified would kidnap my daughter in Salt Lake City.
She's now your wingman.
Yeah, so
Wing
now we're
person.
like inseparable, and
Wow,
you know what I
that's
mean?
great.
So
So
that's kind of how that evolved.
How big is your law firm right now?
So I have, Jim is my friend from law school, because I really like to have people that I work with that I trust and I know.
Yeah.
And he brings his own real estate deals in and uses my firm and my staff, and helps me cover, and I cover for him. So it's
Okay.
really nice to have that support. Bill does per diem with my firm, is under my malpractice, does all of that as needed. And I have a staff of 5.
Wow.
But we run it so that really, you just think it's, when you're sending me an email, you think it's really Peg and I, because we have a really strong back end. So every email that comes to me, Peg is automatically copied on. I have Patrick, who is Peg's son, he's her right hand, like going into emails, kind of like circulating, doing addendums, we'll flip emails to him. They're in Peg's email, pulling stuff out that would be their job, sending titles around, title updates, things like that. Kathy's my notary, so we work, because I'm all virtual, which has been a challenge, I thought, when I started, but now I think it's a blessing
Such
in
an advantage.
in the time of COVID.
Yeah.
But Kathy is my notary and has been, she has been my friend. She's a friend I met through special needs, because she's got a son that's at Misericordia.
Wow.
So she, got her notary. She now has her paralegal certificate. So she helps me a lot with my quitclaim deeds. She does all my closing docs, everything like that. And she will go to people to pre-sign documents for my sales, or even like a power of attorney for a buy or something like that. And then brings them to the closing so that we have that continuity there. And because we don't have our clients come to us, we come to them because we really offer a full service. We want it to be a boutique feel.
Yeah.
And then we have Holly, who does all of my village and HOA requirements. But we send, sometimes you may not know that Holly's on it. That might be a surprise for people listening that we have those, because we send the emails as Peg. So when they come back, Peg answers and fields all the questions.
So what are the criteria for you? Building your team, what are the people? What's the thread of what you're looking for in a person?
Really, everybody that I've hired has not had a real estate background.
Okay.
So I want a willingness to learn. I want a willingness to listen, caring, and hard work. Because we can teach all the skills.
That's great. I love it. Oh, I got all this background, but I don't want to work, and I don't want to this.
And just to learn and to be like adaptable.
Yeah.
And just because we can teach everything and you can learn it. And we have really such strong systems, and it's all task oriented, because we're really proactive, not reactive. So, and we don't we don't want to have, like for Jack, Peg's son Jack was doing a lot of our tax stuff. But he's gone back to school to finish up. He's getting a math degree. So he, we needed to have more time from him than he could give.
Yeah.
So Kathy has kind of moved into more of the tax role, with making sure the exemptions are on in the following years, that we follow up on those kind of things. And I'm like, every week we'll teach you something new. Like, let's just ease into it. And now that Kathy's done with her paralegal school.
Wow.
So we just kind of, just a willingness to work and just kindness. Because we want to treat our clients and agents as family.
Yes.
And just to be there.
Yeah. Well, I see that nurturing, that now you're nurturing your business and the people in your business right along with your family. They're like family to you.
Right.
So you went from kind of organic real estate to really being intentional about growing your business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And growing it with how we're going to grow it.
How you're going to grow it. Yeah, being intentional about that. So how do you establish relationships with agents? What is the key to that? Just getting to know them, getting out there?
I think it's been a little harder with COVID.
Yes, absolutely.
I think a lot more challenging, but really listening, always letting people have my cell phone, being as responsive as I can.
You're very active in the associations, right?
Yes, being sponsoring things. I never want to turn down an opportunity to sponsor something.
Yeah.
I love Facebook and social media. I know that's, not everybody does. And really just sharing who I am. I don't like to share how many closings I've had in a day or the stresses of a day, but just being honest.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have issues, and we all have hard days, and we all have rough days and things, and we have to cover for people.
Yeah.
And I love it when an agent is like, I had an agent share with me that, this is going to be a really rough weekend for me because I have a funeral or something is happening. How can we problem solve this? Hey, let me step in and be a little bit more active, and not let me support you.
Yeah.
And and do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just really be that partner.
Right.
And really, I love to sponsor events. Like, I have an agent that's doing a giveaway, and she's like, will you sponsor that? I'm like, of course I will. I love that. Let's do it together, because I want to build my business along with others.
Yeah, you're really creative in your marketing. I love, you came in here with these cute stickers. I don't want to bring them out here right now, but is that just something, your embroidery, all this, there's a design, there's an artistic
I can't draw, but I've got my best friend from, this is where I love that my team, so it's my best friend from high school, who has always been there for, I'm like, hey, I've got this, and I used my skyline was designed by my flower girl in my wedding, Megan, and so I was like, I kind of want to have, and the reason my skyline is there was because I wanted to have harder lines, but the watercolors for softer, because you have lines, but you don't have to always be within those lines.
Yes.
Because you have a different way of thinking about things.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the thought of what was my logo going to be. And I wanted it to be different. when I started it, because my husband's been so supportive, and when we talked about what was it going to be, and he was like, just be you. Let your firm be a reflection of you, and I feel like the people that work for me are, and to have it be a little bit more non-traditional.
Yes.
And I think you can, I think that's what we've been.
Yeah.
To now be traditional.
Yeah. So how do you, every time I meet you, you're very positive, you're upbeat. How do you take on challenges, troubles? You know you have them in your life. It sounds like you're even talking about, you know, the special needs, those kind of things. What's your approach to turn that into a positive?
Well, I just think I'm grateful for how far I've come. And like we have really great family support, and just to be grateful for what we have and don't, instead of focusing on what you don't have.
So attitude of gratitude.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and I look at it like all my kids are so incredibly different,
Yes.
but we just look at each one's accomplishments focused on them.
So was there anyone over the course of your life that you felt, it sounds like parents were mentors, right?
Yes.
Were there any other mentors in your life?
I would say like my husband for like really just encouraging me. When I
Yes.
started my firm, I really had a preconceived notion of how it had to be.
So your husband championed your ventures, whatever
Right.
they were, right?
Right, and he was at the time doing global claims, and, you know, working on, you know, he was working on like these claims that would be, you know, large or national claims, and he was like, you know, his desk is in our bedroom. You know, he was like, you know, this is nothing fancy.
Yeah.
He was like, you know, I don't go in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, you don't need an office.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my mindset, I had to have an office.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you need to change your mindset of how do you need to have your firm be. So I, you know, really went with my firm can be all virtual. But I also think that was a huge challenge to be taken seriously
Yes.
with having a virtual firm. Now I think it's kind of funny because I got a referral and she was like, and I've heard about your dogs. You have that one crazy dog where you can't put like a check through the mailbox because we don't want him to eat it. And we got to put it in the wreath. But now we have a really great thing. So anybody dropping stuff off, I don't know, it was $20 on Amazon because we have a mail slot for security.
Yeah.
It catches it. I mean, who knew that this was around? I don't know, but you know what I mean? But people know you who you are because, you know, we have our black lab is EB's service dog that's like in retirement. And then, you know, we have this Yorkie Poo Huckleberry that, you know, like loves mail. But you know what I mean? And people are like, I mean, but they're talking about it, but I'm getting the referrals because everybody's human. And so my husband was like, just be you. And that's how the notary came to be.
Yes.
Because I'm like, I can't have a notary coming to my house, so we're gonna change it. How do I look at it differently?
Wow.
And I think that being a mom of a special needs child, it made me look at life differently.
Yeah. It's not all cookie cutter. It doesn't just all
Right,
work
and I
out
think
like
that
it does in the
translated to my
movies.
business.
Yeah.
Of I've got to look at it differently. So that's where we, you know, I had my friend Kathy get her notary, and now I think she's on her third. I think what is she on her second or third notary expert? You know, that which she had to renew since she's had it. So she, you know, I had her get that so that we could, you know, and we changed how are we going to do it. So now we're like a fine-tuned machine.
Wow.
You know, as soon as we're through attorney review, she reaches out to pre-sign, and you know, we dropped off the 2 packs of docs yesterday.
Yep.
You know, as soon as they're pre-signed, we bring them to you so they're ready to go. That way we're ready if we need to close early.
Well, and I see how, I mean, real estate you think is just a transaction, but every buyer, every seller, every agent is different. There's all kinds of things that come up. And if you're not triggered by all these things, you're just like, oh, yeah, you know, let's handle this one. So some of that approach is now carried over to your real estate business, right?
And we know that some people are stay-at-home parents. Some people have, you know, one of my agents is one of my best friends that I met from when our kids were in, you know, early childhood education together, you know, and she, you know, we know her challenges in life.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? And, you know, sometimes, you know, she needs to, you know, what she's got going on with her family life and those things, and we all have challenges.
Yeah, I think you're whether it be by happenstance or luck or whatever, your firm is kind of the firm of the future in some ways, where people are home, they're family oriented and flexible, yet they get the job done because they have systems and processes. Everyone doesn't need to be in the same office in order to get the job done.
Right. No, Peg's up in northern Michigan now because she has lupus, and with COVID, she was really concerned about the health and safety aspect.
Sure.
So they have a cottage up in northern Michigan, and she's up there. We FedEx her.
No one even knows it.
Right, and I've got a box I FedEx to her, and we've got really, and I have a tech company that we have that really keeps it smooth. And we,
Yeah, you have the seller net sheet on your website. Which,
right, and a lot of new things coming. It's just
Yeah.
hard to get them all loaded, but we got a lot of exciting things coming
That's
for this
awesome.
year. But we really, my tech company, I was like, I think they think I'm like, so I want, when this type of email comes in, I want it to be this color coded. But then Peg's colorblind. So we've got to have a different font. And he was
Wow.
like, seriously, that's what we want? And I was like, yeah, that's what we want. And then,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I did some Outlook tutorials on LinkedIn. There's a lot of good things you can do.
That's
But
great.
really, how do you manage your email boxes? And how do you make them more efficient? Because you know how many emails you get.
Yeah,
And how do you like make that work for you?
yes.
And then, but we're very, I mean, Peg will yell at me. I mean, maybe she's the real boss.
Yeah.
Because she's like, stay in your lane. Because I think I'll be helpful.
Stay in your lane.
I think I'll
Love
be
it.
helpful asking for something. She's like, that's not your job. Do you know what I mean? Or if sending something along, she's like, that's not your job. This person prepares the addendum. This person puts them in DocuSign.
Yes.
And then we track them because everything is tracked. You know what I mean? Like we know that there's a home warranty. A week before closing, we ask for the home warranty.
Yes.
We do fake, and we really just, for every file, it's the same. And we have the same procedure for every file. Or if something new occurs, we put a new task in for that.
Awesome.
But we really just try to use technology. But I'm not that technology savvy.
You don't have to be though, right?
I don't even know how to sort an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But
You're
I
a
have people for
visionary.
that.
Yeah, you're a visionary.
I get nervous, like I'm terrified to sort it the wrong way.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? That's where we have a tech company to really help us achieve what we want to achieve, to make sure that we are giving the best service we can.
Yeah, so it's amazing. There's so many different. It's almost like contradictory ideas. You have the I want to live in the moment today. Then you have this idea for the future, this kind of vision. You have this planning aspect for you. So where do you see your law firm, a couple years from now? What's your vision for it, if there is one?
I still think doing an even better job than we are now.
For your agents and sellers?
Yeah, and more streamlined and a steady workflow and really having solid relationships. I would like to be able to teach some classes to my agents so that I can come in and offer that service within the brokerage.
Okay.
So that it can be, to offer more services to them.
Okay.
So to say, and be that resource for them.
Be a greater value add.
Right, and what values can I add?
Yeah.
Like we have the net sheet. We have, it's almost fully loaded. I had, and I really like to use I had a college kid, do a really great job adding in all the city info. So when we open a file, we send them, here's all the information, for I'm in LaGrange, so you're buying a house in LaGrange, here's all the city info. We took it off of the city info from the MLS. Here's all the city info here with all the numbers. And then we'll give that when you send the closing confirmation. So you know who to call for water, who to call for everything.
Being a family law resource, potentially.
But really, just to really, that's really, I think, where I'd like to put more time and energy into it, to really, how can I be that resource for my agents, for my clients, and really for divorce attorneys to be the premier attorney for divorce within real estate. And I will tell you, I get a fair number of quick claim deeds, whether it be from lenders within divorces or questions about the marital settlement agreements, and sometimes it's even attorneys that might outsource that. Because being entitled, sometimes those marital settlement agreements aren't very clear.
Yeah.
And really kind of how do we make those a little bit more clear, so that, is there a better way to do that? Because I think that is where there's so much stress. Because that's your hierarchy of needs. If you don't have a place to live and you don't understand it, and really there's a lot of pre-divorce lenders out there, and that's where I think the collaborative comes in to really make it better. That if you can finalize where people live, it all kind of falls into place.
That's awesome.
And that's really what I think can help so many people.
So first off, I'm grateful for Carmen Carbonara, our director of sales at Land Trust. She tells me this story about the day that she's making cold calls and she comes and knocks on your door at home.
Right, it was like when I started. I was like,
Yeah, And
my
you were-
husband, God bless him, answers the door for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I think people like know Peter.
Yeah.
They probably have seen him more. He takes earnest money checks.
Oh, wow.
He's
Yeah, and
got
for
it
you
all.
to say, hey, I'll call you back as opposed to, scram or whatever, what a great way to start a relationship. It's just, you never know who's behind the door, right? And so I'm so appreciative that we've had this time. But if you had, so you have a person that's trying to begin their career or think about what they want to do or what they want to be, is there any advice you'd give them? Someone that's thinking about how do I find my direction, or what are a couple key things to get me started?
I would say keep growing.
Okay, keep growing.
And like, I have every quarter I want to do something to improve. And every week we do an improvement. Like we want to rewrite our letter, or we want to make an improvement to our attorney review letter, or we want to do something technology. Like we have a running list in our shared
Stuff we want to get better on.
Right, like we, like we have a running list of what we do. We've all, Patrick is in Smokeball, he's certified, he
Yeah.
does all of our forms. We have like different forms we want to do. So every week my firm, we do one improvement,
Wow,
whether
that's
technology
fantastic.
or something like that. Keep a CRM,
Mhm,
really just stay in contact with people,
mhm,
get to know people personally,
mm.
because your business isn't coming from a sign, it's coming from personal connections. Always do your best.
People, not titles.
Right, and
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, and always do your best,
Yeah,
and be honest.
huh,
I mean, because you know what, mistakes happen, things happen. I mean, we're not immune. I mean, I will say that we sent an attorney review letter, and it's all about how you handle it.
Yeah.
I mean, I said to Peg's like, I'm sending that off because we stay on our highway.
mhm,
It was approved by the client. Peg said, I'm sending it off. It got stuck in her outbox.
mhm,
My tech company was like, it was stuck. Other things were there. For some reason, it was spooling.
mm.
My tech company sent a letter. The attorney was like, we didn't get it in time. I said, what can I do to make it right?
Hmm.
And came clean.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all human, and that's what,
Mistakes are gonna happen.
mistakes are gonna
Own
happen,
them.
and how do we own them?
Yeah,
I mean, I came clean to everybody in the transaction. I said, but I understand that you don't need to honor the letter.
yep,
They said because it was late, we would have given this, but we're gonna give this. I said, here's a check for this. You know what I mean? I'm waiving my attorney fee, and what do we need?
let's move forward.
Right, I mean, like, it's really, in the end of the day, you know what? It's real estate. It's not
Yeah.
people's lives.
Right,
We're not,
right,
and we just have to be honest.
yeah,
And to be gracious to other people and to other attorneys.
be
and
kind.
Right. I mean, and mistakes do happen, and sometimes, somebody else is having a rough day, and that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, you have a lot of empathy, I notice, for people, and maybe that's because you have dealt with difficult situations.
I would say it's changed me. I was a
Okay.
much different attorney, I think, before I had.
Okay.
I was a much more demanding. Like,
Okay.
if you ask my staff who I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say I'm in touch with one of my
Yeah,
staff, but some of them I was probably a little bit more demanding
Yeah.
to be gracious.
yeah,
And but we're all, and what I love about real estate is, and that's what I love about collaborative divorce, is we're all in a common goal.
mm.
Everybody wants to be in a better,
Gotta get to the end table. If the person doesn't own a home when it's all said and done, we haven't done the best,
right, and that's where, like, we track, like, we have, like, change, like, even if it's, like, perceived whose job it is and
Yeah.
and where you are, in a job, like, maybe it's the buyer to do an addendum,
Mhm.
I'm going to do, it doesn't matter. If you
Yeah.
want us to do the addendum, I
Yeah.
don't really care.
Yeah.
Because my addendums are all automated,
Yes,
and they're done in 10 seconds.
wow,
Do you know what I mean? So it's not there, but I mean, my advice is to always have a plan. How can you be better? Like, so we try to do like a major quarterly,
yep, upgrade,
I love it.
yeah,
And a quarterly upgrade, like last year I did folders one quarter.
yep,
Like this quarter, we're doing, we're launching out something to our buyers and sellers
mhm,
when we send out the attorney review letter. And then we do like a weekly within our firm to review stuff.
mhm.
Because you know what, different things, like, and I will say, it was really eye-opening to me that my daughter was with paying utilities, who's 20.
Mhm.
I was like, she's like, well, how do I pay this? Because she didn't get a bill for something. I'm like, well, remember the bill I sent you? It was 10 minutes of me talking to her.
Mhm.
And I'm like, she's probably smarter than the average Joe, an engineering major,
Mhm.
in California. And I was like, she does not understand this.
Mm.
So I was like, we probably need to go back to our what to expect when buying and maybe break it down a little bit more.
Yeah,
Because if she's not understanding this,
Right, it seems second nature to us now, but
right,
maybe
so
not
let's
to
have,
people
so
who
I'm
are-
having Patrick, who just graduated from college, Peg's son, who's
Yes.
working for us. I'm like, why don't you go through this letter?
Mhm.
Because Peg and I know how to call for utilities.
Yeah,
Why don't you go through this letter? And now I'm gonna ask my daughter to read it over, of someone that really, if you're a first-time home buyer, maybe you've never done utilities.
mhm,
Like, I took it for common sense that she would know how to do this.
yeah,
So we really are just trying to improve.
wow. Jill, it has been a delight, really.
It's been
So
great.
I feel like we could go on and on, but I know that if
That's what we
someone,
always are.
yeah, if someone is listening to this, I think an agent will say, wow, I think I'm, I really feel synergy, or someone who's looking to start a career or whatever. So I'm grateful that you're able to share some of your story and share some of your life lessons that you've learned over really an impressive entrepreneurial career. So thank you. And People Not Titles signing off.
I love it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep, see you later.